All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for each and every one of you who signed up and who are present here today for this webinar. The title of this presentation is Crew Planning for High Efficiency. This is accumulation of some information that I've gathered over the years from my own company, but most importantly, from some of the most efficient companies that I've worked with throughout North America. Um, if there was one topic that looking back, I would want my whole team to spend more time on focusing on that one topic, it would definitely be crew planning. And so today, I want to share some of this information that I've gathered, but that I also use on a daily basis. So today, in part of this session, some of my learning objectives is going to be able, first, what does it mean to help your crew leaders and field workers to have a plan and to execute more efficiently? So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at the 4 traits of top landscape contractors and the 10 steps process that they take or that they implement to create the efficiency shift in their business. And for those of you who stay until the end, I will also share how you can get your team on board and more engaged. And I'll offer you a gift at the end just for getting started with your own process of implementing some new systems in your business and a couple resources that you can download. So again, thanks for being here. My name is Frank Bourque. I work as a consultant and coach in the landscape and hardscape industry. I focus all my time, this is what I do full time, with mostly design build companies throughout North America, companies that do have construction, they have maintenance, some of them have snow, and they are all looking for something similar. How do I, as a business owner or business leader or team, how do we manage our time better so that we get to do what we love to do in better ways where we can make more money, we can be more profitable, we can be happier at work, and ultimately, if we're doing all these things, chances are we're getting more efficient as we're getting better also. So today is all about efficiency, but it's all about time. It's all about how you manage your time and how you help your team manage their time. So a little bit about myself. My background is landscaping for the last 24 years. I've had my own business for just over 15 years. And when we grew our business, we had some periods where we grew fast, some periods where we grew slow. We had at one point over 110 employees. Then we had the economy shift, or as I call it, the economy crash way back in 2008, 2009, where we had to redefine the business. We had to really take a look at what really worked, what didn't work, and it forced us to only focus on the stuff that was important, on the people, on the clients, on our systems, on our employees that really brought value to us. And everything else we had to let go of, or else we would not survive. So today is almost all about that. If you had to manage your time because you had no other choice than only picking what is important, you would have this mindset shift a lot quicker. And this often happens to people who are put in this situation. For some people who are not in a hurry to change, well, this process can last a long time. But when you do get fed up and when you do want to make some changes, there's definitely steps you can take to make that happen. And so companies such as Local Roots Landscaping that I work with, when Kenneth and Patrick that you see here in the middle, when they gave me a call, they weren't giving me a call because everything was going well. They gave me a call because they had hit a ceiling in their business. Year after year, they were able to grow from $1 million in revenue per year, and then they kept growing and then hit another ceiling at about 1.5, and then hit another ceiling at about 2 million. And so they were looking to know, how can I grow? How can I help my crews if we we're almost at full capacity. We have a hard time finding employees. What can we do if we want to double? So just in the last 12 to 13 months, they really changed their business. They implemented what I'm going to show you today step by step. And if you would have this conversation with them today about how they feel, they would say that it's just not the same business at all. They just don't feel the same way about their business. They don't feel the same way about their team. Their team doesn't feel the same way about them as they felt before, where they were a lot more overwhelmed. They didn't feel like the owners cared, although they really did care. It's just that they didn't have time to show it as much. So what you'll see today is stuff like this that helps companies like this one, where they're growing to 4 million this year with just a few more employees because they have restructured, they're growing, they're hiring the right people in the right leadership positions. Companies like Varsity that has put all their focus on their team and saying, we know that our team can get better, but we have to put money into training. We have to put money into recruiting. We have to put money into onboarding. So companies like this one, companies like Atlas Outdoor. If some of you know Sam Gamble, the owner of the company, you know for a fact how much he cares, how much, is one of the top, I'd say, leaders that I know personally who has that gift of putting people in the right place, because he'll be the first to say it. He's good at a couple things, but his staff are the ones that are really making it happen, and because his focus is on that. And so him and his wife, they own the business, but they put all the focus on their teams and growing their teams. So same goes out. These folks use these steps that we're going to talk about today. First and foremost, efficiency does not happen by accident. There's 4 traits that top landscape contractors have, and it's because they've put some effort into it. We don't just get efficient because we're born that way. It takes effort, it takes time, and more importantly, it takes an investment in your time. Sometimes it takes an investment of money to be able to do this, but to get better, you need to do it. To go over and beyond your capacity, you need to do this. To just go to the next step and to be able to produce maybe 20% more, maybe 50% more. Some of the companies that I work with, they eventually hit 100% more what they were able to do in capacity, from, let's say, 3, 4, 500,000 in a crew to over 1 million with the same crew, just different. They're trained differently. They're not doing the same types of jobs or the same type of using the same type of equipment anymore, because they've broken out of those habits or what they were doing previously. And so we just don't know what we don't know until we actually work with, let's say, a company that has those habits already or that has gone through those changes. Today is kind of giving you a glimpse of what you can expect to go through this process, because this is a process. You're continuously going to look at these 10 steps as you're growing as a business to be able to get better. And when you hit that ceiling, when you hit that full capacity, you're gonna step back, go through the different steps and say, okay, where are we lacking? Where are we strong? Most companies are really, really good at 2, 3, or maybe 4 of these 10 steps that I will present today. But if you can get great at least going through this list and focusing on where you need to work a bit more so that you can get better, this is where you're going to see a lot of changes with your team. And so first, foremost, it's like anything else. I personally use the example of my office because that's where I'm at today. When I start my day, if my office is not clean, if it's not organized, I feel like my whole day will feel a bit like that. And so getting organized, getting the crew, getting their tools organized, getting everything about how they start their day, how they finish their day to feel like it's in order is a better way to go about doing things. Landscape contractors who are lean, so those who eliminate the waste. We're going to talk about that today, but we're going to go deep dive into these, each and every one of these. But those who stay lean, those who eliminate anything that doesn't bring anything in value. So if it's a waste of time, a waste of money, a waste of resources, they get rid of it as much as they can, as quick as they can, to move on to the next better thing that's going to help them. Also, they stay equipped for success. When I say equipped for success, it's all about using the right tools, the right equipment, setting it up so that the people doing the work have the right resources, using tools, equipment that makes your team more efficient, that if you're using better equipment, chances are your team's not working as hard, but they can be more consistent. We'll talk about that. We'll see how there's equipment now that you can double, triple, and even more than that, your efficiency just based on what you do. We'll talk about some teams that have done that and how they've done it. And last but not least, the top part of the top 4 traits of landscape contractors is effective people. But oftentimes, and I know I was here as a business owner, I was expecting that my employees should keep up at a pace that's very high pace, like I, the business owner, could do. And that was just not realistic. If you're the owner of the business, no one's going to take your business as seriously as you do. Not because they don't want to, it's just because what's in it for them is usually not as great as what's in it for you. And so their goals are not the same as yours, but you definitely have to find out what their goals are. So, but one of your goals should be to bring people through a process where they understand how it works working for your company, and also what it means to be effective while working for your company. And if they are effective, that they are rewarded in different ways. And I'm not just talking about money, because we all know that sometimes we think, when we think reward, we think bonus, we think money, but that can be many other things. Effective people just are in general happier, they work better, they are more inspiring to work with, and overall it's a better experience for everyone to be around effective people. But first you need to get good at what you do, then you get to be effective, and then you can increase your speed. But it doesn't happen in any other order than that one if you want to do it right. And so sometimes we just expect the speed and people to be able to do as much as we want them to do, but we have to understand they have to get good, effective, and then they can get quick at what they do. So let's get into the 10-step process to help you help your crews plan for better efficiency, and so that they can build this into their daily habits for better planning. But definitely, if you're a leader or a business owner, you're a huge part of this, because it will take an investment of time, an investment of money, because they have to take the time and do this in order for this to happen. There's no other way around it. So first step, getting organized with the 5S. It's a simple strategy, proven strategy. Excuse me. So a simple, proven process that includes 5 things. First, you have to sort. So basically, that's eliminate what is not needed, going through your stuff. Again, for your crews, that could mean going through their trailer setup or their trucks and taking a look at, okay, do we need everything that's there? Can they find what they need to find? Is it in order, right? So does everything has its place? Is it kept clean? So shine, standardize. Is everything labeled? Is it all assigned in their own place so that when it's not there, you know what's missing? And also find a way to sustain this. So do you have weekly inspections? Do you have someone in the crew? It doesn't always have to be the foreman or the crew leader. It can be other others in the crew that can take over this task of making sure everything gets done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so getting organized is really just the first simple step into getting to be better so that people can be more efficient. First step. There's great resources out there. One great example that comes to mind for me is Platinum's Landscape. I did a shop visit earlier this year and recorded it through Hardscape Live. That was an event through Landscape Ontario Congress. If you go to hardscapelive.com, I believe you can still have access to this tour. But Glenn was the one that I was interviewing, and he was showing me around his shop, and he has implemented the 5S. Everything has a spot, everything is in order. People know what to expect when something's not there or when it's in a certain spot. He even has a spot for broken items so that we know that when it's in that rectangular square on the ground and in a certain spot in the shop, these things are picked up on a weekly basis by the mechanic and are fixed and are tagged and brought back. So like his system is organized, it's labeled, everything has its place, everything is cleaned on a weekly basis, from the trucks to the equipment, making sure that everything's maintained. And ultimately he's doing this not only for the image and the brand of the business, but to make sure that everything is better maintained and can last longer. So what he's doing is really focusing on building a culture where people take care of the stuff, where people care about not only the client and the work, but everything that goes along with taking care of the business as well, and the tools that they use and respecting it just as much as the work that they do. So taking pride in both. Oriole Landscaping is a great example of this. I did the same thing, interviewed both owners, Peter and George. They have a great video on YouTube through LMN who did the same and interviewed them. And they talk about organizing and staying organized with the 5S. So you can go on YouTube and check that out. It's very inspiring and interesting. Second, identifying your priorities. So as the business owner, you need to know where you're going with your business, but people in your business need to know where you're going as well. So to get everyone on board and accountable with the same priorities in the operating system, you need to know what it is for you and for your business and where you're trying to go. So one of the first things that we do with teams and team leaders is to figure out where do we want to go and what are we trying to achieve. So in terms of strategic plan, this should be done or reviewed on a yearly basis. I'm just using an example here, but which I love what this company did is because they actually got a graphic designer to kind of do something more special with the image that they have on there, but they've made it nice enough that they can print it, put it on their wall at work, and tell people when they say, when they're having a meeting, talking about where they're trying to go with the company, it says everything about the company and where it wants to go, what it's trying to do. So in 1 year, you can tell your employees, here's what we're going to do in 2021. First of all, in our business, we hire, we fire, we find clients based on our core values. We want people that are team focused, people that like to play hard, or work hard, but play hard. We want people that want to wow customers, people that want to be better every day. This is the type of people we want to work with and be with. And on top of that, well, we exist because we're here to enrich the lives of team members and clients. So they have a purpose, they have a why, right? When they talk about strategic compass, where they want to go, how they're going to get there, or they're going to get there because they're going to be known for their operational excellence. They want systems that are that has a flow, that everyone can be consistent, everyone can operate with the same systems, so they can, doesn't matter if they have 4 crews or 15 crews, everyone kind of operates the same way, right? And then they have the long-term plan or the long-term goal, which is, let's say for them in the next 10 years, let's say they want to hit 10 million sales and become 20% net profit instead of just being at the 15 net profit. which is already really good, or maybe they're at the 10% net right now and they want to get to 20% net, which is not impossible, but if they do it, they'll be in the top 1% of companies in the industry that run a good profit. So, and net, this type of net profit. And so going from $1 million to 10 million or wherever they're at this time requires a lot of planning, but at least they can tell their teams, hey, listen, this is where we're gonna go. We might not be there yet, but here's how we're gonna get there. In the next 12 months, we're gonna implement a digital technology strategy. We're gonna start implementing some more software. On top of that, we're gonna do some maintenance. We're going to grow 25% in sales. We're going to make sure we get at least minimum 10% net profit. We're going to be hiring, and then they've selected some examples: an office assistant, an estimator, a team or a skilled leader in construction. We're going to hire 4 more lead or people to help on sites, employees. And we're going to build an onboarding program and career planning strategy. So this is what's going to happen in the next 12 months. So right there, people know the priorities of the business. And then the strategy. How are we going to do it? So they have an HR strategy, they have a finance strategy, a sales, and a technology operational strategy. Some of these things we're going to be talking about today. This was just an example, but this is one of the first things, again, that we do to make sure that people realize you got to be organized, and you got to know where you're going, and your team has to know the same information. You can't be inspired if you have no clue where you're heading towards or what you're heading towards, and if you're hitting those targets or not. So we'll talk more about that, but 2 things. As I'm talking, I'm realizing that some of you might have some questions, and if you do, you can put them in the chat. I'll answer them maybe as I go, or at the end, I'll definitely save some time to answer the questions. But feel free to ask your questions if you have some in the chat box. If you want to read a really great book about priorities, you can take a look at the Entrepreneurial Operating System. There's a book called Traction. There's a whole series of books, but ultimately they talk about 6 priorities in every business that every business owner should have. And so when you have your vision as a priority for the business, you keep data. So you keep track, you measure what you're doing to know if you're behind, if you're ahead, if you're to know exactly what's happening. Then you keep a process. You also do the work, and you take care of issues, you monitor issues, you deal with issues, and finally your people. If you really take care of these 6 priorities step by step, and you implement this as an operating system, ideally you will be building the business that you're trying to build in a way that is productive and in the same direction as where you're trying to hit. Because there's nothing worse than building a business that you don't want. And that often happens with business owners who end up building a great big business, but they have no time for themselves, and they never wish that they would build something that would take all their time away. So this is just one example, but this is a great book. I see one question coming in reference to the percentage of systems. Not exactly a question, but can you please give some examples of each method as many times as you have time for? Meaning what you might be doing now versus what you're doing differently. Okay, great. So we'll definitely give as many examples in terms of systems and what we were doing before and after. So definitely great question. I'll keep that in mind as I'm going. So setting goals for the team. That's the 3rd step in the process. So after you've organized with the 5S and you've looked at your priorities for the business, where you're trying to go, now you're trying to set goals for each team so that they can be accountable to something. They can know what they're trying to hit. So for examples, oftentimes we will, this is typically what happens. We have a job order. We will hand out this to the foreman. He will get all the details from the job. Someone may or may not show up on site, give them more details, show them what's have to be done, and then they do as much as they can in one day. They go home, they do the same thing the next. That's a crew that would be like a typical crew, what usually happens. But with an efficient crew, like next level efficient, the foreman would not only have this information, but the company sets annual goals for the crew. So the company will say, hey, our goal for your crew this year is so much. And if you've been measuring how much they've been doing in the past, this is where it gets helpful to have the data, to have the information from previous years, or even just have a benchmark, because you need something to be able for people to be able to work towards. So setting that annual goal. So for some crews, between 500 to 600,000, usually in design build, for design build crews of 2 or 3 people, that's usually like a minimum. But very efficient crews in the hardscape industry might set goals higher, such as 800,000 to, I know some crews that go up to 1.2 million in revenue in just, well, you know, in the northern part of the United States and Canada. We run businesses 7 to 10 months a year, so it can vary. But I know some crews that do 1.2 million in 7 months. So I know it's doable. That's design build, obviously, but maintenance crews could have different numbers for sure. It wouldn't be as high, but it's just to show that you can go from a crew design build hardscaping from 500,000 to 1.2 with the same amount of people. It's going to depend on some other factors that we'll talk about. Could be the type of job, could be the type of equipment you're using, could be the skill level, could be how they use their time, how much time is wasted. So many things come into hand. So you as the business leader, the business manager, the owner, you need to monitor these things to keep them aware of what you need, what the business needs, and to be able to tell them, here's what's realistic based on past results. Here's where you're at. All right. So having these goals for the year. So knowing how much you need on a daily basis. When you leave in the morning, you should be coming back with $3,000 worth in production, for instance, for example. And so the crews need to know what they need to hit for each day. That gets better as you start tracking. At first, it may be challenging. It's always better to just start tracking first and then giving some numbers after, because it's when you're just guessing, it actually gets to be discouraging, depressing, disappointing for the crew members because they're never hitting the goals because they may not be realistic for that specific crew. So tracking is very important to set those goals, but having those goals, it estimates also the setting job goals for the foreman. So for each job, in terms of knowing how many hours are you supposed to be on this job, and setting some goals based on efficiency, productivity, and getting some feedback from the foreman to know why they hit the goal or maybe why they don't hit the goal, and being there for support. Foreman setting daily goals for the crew. So not only does the foreman needs to know what he needs to do, but the crew needs to know what they're supposed to do and where they're supposed to be at the end of the day. This really helps to keep the crew motivated, especially when the foreman gets to know how much he can do in one day. It gets to be motivating for the crew to be to hit those targets, those goals for the day. Number 4, step 4 is eliminating the waste and focusing on training the right people, but also getting that right talent in the right place. And easier said than done, I totally understand. But let's look at the 9 types of waste first and think about your business and where this is at. I know personally that in my own business, we had all of these at some point, and sometimes it was all at the same time. But first, overproduction, taking unneeded steps while producing the work and using the wrong equipment for the job. That happens with every company. You show up on the job, you don't have the right size excavator. It's, you know, if it's too big and you can't get access in the backyard, or it's too small and you're just not getting the work done as fast as you could. Way more productive in leasing maybe or renting a piece of equipment just for that specific job than using something that's going to take you twice as much time. Sometimes we're doing the math. Number two, waiting. So if you're waiting for materials, I know that during the last year, one of my biggest complaints were getting materials and staying productive with materials. So that takes a lot more planning in advance to order the pickup. Here in Ontario right now, everything is locked down. So we're contractors are improvising with the picking up at the curbside pickup. But all these things that can slow you down needs to be planned for, and you need to come up with it with different scenarios and different solutions. So planning ahead, being proactive. So waiting for, it could be subcontractors, waiting for information, waiting for equipment, waiting for deliveries. Number 3, unnecessary transportation, moving equipment, people or materials more than required as a result of poor planning. Sending employees to the store is really counterproductive. There's programs like with Home Depot where in some, or if not most, you can get deliveries for very cheap. If it's not $20, it's very close to this amount, and you can get pretty much anything ordered for that same amount. Compared to the cost of sending an employee or 2 or 3, worst case, to get some materials, that happens often and is one of the biggest wastes in terms of time and money. But really, it's lost opportunity because we can only sell so many hours in a year. That's really what we're selling. We're selling labor. So to use the labor where not on site, anywhere other than on site, can be improved in terms of efficiency if we eliminate that as much as possible. Access inventory. So I've seen a lot of company in the last year order more in advance to make sure that they don't run out, but then they're stuck with a lot of supplies, a lot of extras, which results in waste. If you're not pressing that into the job, then you're taking the loss. So to consider, to keep in mind. Unnecessary movement, right? Like I mentioned, moving equipment, materials during production. Defective work, so working too quickly and cutting corners, having to go back. These are all examples of what can happen when your crew feels pressured. The goal is not to make them work faster on every job. It's not like but the goal is to say, hey, here's some resources. Let's work on this. Let's train for this. Let's get better at this. And then you can focus on the speed. But like I said, if you're just looking for speed right out the door, your team is going to struggle because ultimately they just don't have the skill level to go at the speed. And the result may be defective work, cutting corners, or just trying to skip some steps that are necessary for the work that they do. Extra processing, unused paperwork or reports, relying on unnecessary processes or procedures. Sometimes we lack processes and systems, but sometimes we have too much. If we have to do the same thing, or multiple people have to do the same thing, it's just we're over processing, and which is not helping the productivity. Unused employee creativity. So if you're the business owner and you're finding all the solutions, you're really losing out on an opportunity to get your people to think, to get your people to find solutions. And when they do, they are way more engaged and accountable to you others, and they get to care a lot more about the business when part of what they created is because they were given a chance to create it. So if you're losing time or ideas or skills, or by not engaging and listening to your employees, it's really a missed opportunity. I understand everyone is so busy. In my own business, I would just trying to hit my monthly goals for revenue to be able to do payroll and make sure that we had everything that we need financially for the business, because we were trying to grow at the same time. But we were putting unnecessary stress on the rest of the employees, because we were trying to figure it all out on our own sometimes, which really impacted. But we saw the leadership team grow a lot more when we were able to give them the chance to bring their ideas and to contribute into the business. And we see this with business that we work with on a daily basis, how once they do this, once they put in the trust, it changes the business. Saying no, that one is hard. I know personally that I'm a people pleaser sometimes, and I like to see people smile, and saying yes is way better, or hearing that yes, my assumption is that people like that, and people, but at the same time, it can be at the detriment of my own goals if I'm always saying yes. So saying no is really one of the first steps to growth, because you won't be growing your dreams if you're saying yes to everything else. I can't remember the saying, but there's a good quote out there saying something like, if you're saying yes to everything, you're saying no to a lot of things that you want. So saying no so that you can stay focused on what you want, what you need, what your team needs is really important, including clients, including sometimes having to say no to employees and projects that may be cool to do, but not in the direction that you want to bring your business. So again, saying no to where you're trying to go will help you go in that direction that you're trying to hit. So an example of how you can grow by 10 to 15% as a business. I'm going to speed it up here, but here's just an example, and you can download this next sheet that I have here. That's from LMN. If you're already an LMN member, you can go and download it and get this information right from by logging in and going to the resources. If you don't, you can reach out to me. I'll give my email, but at the end. But you can essentially just put how many hours you estimate that you waste per week or per day in here. It'll tabulate how much lost revenue approximately that represents for your business. And then you can even create some kind of a bonus system if it gets better. And that's an easy way to do it here. But essentially, if you want to improve by 10 to 15%, just pick a few between 5 to 7 things that you can really improve. Maybe pick the worst ones, and brainstorm some solutions with your foremans, with your team leaders, to find out, hey, how can we improve here? Just one example from one team. If you look at how much they were losing per year, that's just with very low numbers, but you see right here that you're already over 30-40,000 in waste that you can improve easily. And that's just with a small team, but extra long breaks, fueling at the gas station, forgetting tools, loading and unloading trailers morning and night, or I mean uncovered trailers or your trucks, mistakes, warranty work, all these things adds up so much. So eliminating the waste in your business, also so crucial as part of the process, but getting your team to be involved in this. Providing a clear work plan. So providing a clear work plan, I love that I met this team and worked with them for a couple of years. But what I loved about this team the most is the one on the bottom left corner. Scott was the main operational manager, but at the time he was the foreman. And every morning he would take out his foldable table, he would open it, he would have a plan ready for his team. He would have them all organized with all the tasks for the day. Everyone would be assigned a specific task, and he would have a meeting with his team every morning. He would look at priorities. He would look at all the materials, everything that the crew needed. He would have it ready step by step for everyone to understand. So essentially, he took the work order, the estimate, broke it down for the team. He took this information, made it more efficient by starting the day and finishing each day with this exercise of showing them what's ahead and what's been completed, and the same thing for the next day. So this team, basically, that's how they were able to get organized and to have the numbers that they have in production because of a good leader like Scott, who takes care of these details. You know, in the paver project, for instance, you could have all these different steps. It seems logical. Seems like if someone has a lot of experience, they would just know this. They wouldn't need this. But having checklists, having detailed items that people can check off when it's done, and to put how much time they spend on it, can make such a difference. Just by implementing something as small as a checklist and keeping track of the time on each job, each phase of the job can help you monitor these things. Another one that I really like from a team, the Creative Hardscaping in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, sorry. My friend Frank Andorra, he would have this in his pocket, and he would have this morning huddle and this PM huddle, so morning and afternoon. And these are the questions he would ask them, right? In the morning, we talk more about, you know, what's happened the day before and the targets, the goals for today. If there's any changes, he would promote safety. He would focus on motivating the crew to get them productive for the day. But at night, he would bring them back and give them like an update and to let them know what they can expect for tomorrow in terms of labor needs and material needs and tools, equipment. He would brainstorm, he would ask them how their day was, and then he would finish the day with any concerns or anything else that he had for that day. These can be easily implemented, don't have to take more than 5-10 minutes a day, but can already make things more productive by having these important conversations right from the start of the day. So startup procedures like job information sheets, determining the project starting point, what's needed on site the first day, where you're going to stage the materials, what other trades may be affecting your work that day, what's the weather forecast like. It'd be great to know this information, not the day when you show up, but having this information the day before so you can plan ahead. Even notifying neighbors, surrounding businesses that you're going to be doing work. A great opportunity to meet neighbors. Good for marketing as well. If they know they have a friendly company working next door, maybe draw in some more business as well. But most importantly, just knowing the next best action for each team member. And this would be up to the team leader to know how to do this. So essentially, training for the foreman, helping the foreman get to the point where he planning is his priority is really the goal. And taking the time to show them how to do this and going through this 10-step process and saying, hey, how about we go through this 10-step process and we see what are the things we can do to help you plan for jobs? Do you have all these things in the job jacket for each job? Do they have a job proposal, drawings, maps that could be just on a simple app on the phone, but a job sheet and daily time sheets? Is it included for the foreman? Do they have this information? If not, definitely something to think about. Site access can be a huge issue. Is that something you're considering? If there's less access, do you have a plan for the foreman, or do you just assume that they're going to know what they need, or once they show up on site, they'll decide? These are all things that should be planned in advance. Job staging as well, where you put the materials. Way easier if you're just moving materials once, and a lot more efficient if it's really close by. So timing can be critical in jobs like this, where if you have to haul material from the front yard to the backyard, it's going to be time consuming. If you can get it delivered right in the backyard, you're going to save a lot of time. So small details like this, obviously. Communicating effectively. So sounds simple, but that's probably one of the most challenging ones or challenging steps, just because when you're trying to communicate from team members, from the office to the field, and trying to keep everyone on the same page, you have to know what's going on with the job. You have to know what the team needs. You have to learn how you can better support. One of the simple apps that are out there, the 4 o'clock 4, the foreman can use on a daily basis to identify what were the three goals, what are the three goals for tomorrow, what was completed today, what is slowing you down, what do you need from us. So this would be completed to be sent out to the owner or a project manager or whoever is helping the foreman organize the job or the materials or the support. And so this can be done. It could be an exercise that takes 5 minutes at the end of each day to help support. And this exercise can be done with the foreman and his crew, just to go through this on a daily basis and say, hey guys, do we need anything for tomorrow? This is what this is what we'll be doing. This is what we're working on. This is what we did today. And kind of provide some feedback and touching base with the office. So easy to do, only takes 5 minutes, and those who are doing it do get better results than those who are not doing it, because it's super easy not to do. It's easier not to do, but those who do it get better results because they're more proactive in the planning phase. Plus, people can support them better because they know where they're at. So the 4 o'clock 4 is also a great app that we use to help crews plan better. Gets them in the habit of doing it. Making sure you have the right people, but the right people in the right place. And I know it's hard to find the right people. It's easier said than done, but you will attract more of those great people when the word goes around that your company is different. If you're just like every other company out there, doesn't matter if you have 5 employees or you have 50 employees or 100 or more. If you operate in a way where people can understand what you're doing, people can predict what you're doing, people can be more consistent, people are appreciated, it's going to have way more of an impact than a company who people show up and they don't have these things. And so if your goal is to grow more efficient, more profitable, you also have to spend more time and money on finding people. We spend a lot of money sometimes on marketing to find great clients, but nowadays we should have a budget, if not as big, probably bigger, just to find great employees, to really put our company out there as someone who really makes that a priority, and to show what kind of culture and where you're trying to go with your company and what makes you special. If people don't see that, it's going to be hard for them to understand why they should go with you. It's really a market for people looking for jobs now because they have multiple options. So it's not that their people aren't there, it's that we have to be the ones in front of them. I only have 10 minutes. I'm going to go through, I see some questions coming in shortly, so I'll be going through this. So just making sure. One of the tools that I've been using is the predictive index for people. So if you're looking for people and you just want to cut that learning curve, or trying to find out more about people quicker and knowing more about, instead of spending a year or two with getting to know people, you can get to know them really quickly, who they are, how they're hardwired, their strengths, their weaknesses, by doing this. So the predictive index, if you reach out to me, I can give you my reference on that, my contact person on that, Jason Taylor. But essentially, he can give you a demonstration of what it looks like and how you can better recruit. 7, using metrics, KPIs, scoreboards. So you can have an office TV leaderboard like this one, where you're tracking a few KPIs. It could be sales, it could be your team members, also your crews, maybe it's revenue per man hour, and kind of gamifying this a little bit for your team so that they know where they stand and who's leading. And then if it's always the same people leading, they can become mentors for other people, right? To help them improve, to give them pointers. But if you're tracking it, great, you'll know who can help who, but if you're not tracking it, it's going to be difficult to compare and to help. But this also helps people to stay accountable, to know where they're at, and to gamify it. So KPIs that you can track can be estimated versus actual hours on jobs to know, did you estimate it well? Daily production rates, revenue per man hour, revenue earned to date with the company, to know where you stand on a monthly, weekly, or a weekly, monthly, and yearly basis to track these things, not to wait until the end of the year to get these numbers. Way more motivating for the team. Using the right equipment and installation techniques. In this step, I could spend hours on it. You all know that equipment is important. The most important part about getting the right equipment, and what I want you to get out of this, is invest in the equipment that you can use most often first. Obviously, when we look at a design build crew, we're looking at an excavator, a skid steer, that's going to be used almost on a daily basis. A truck, obviously, but tools like this one, if you do a lot of pavers or slabs, or maybe walls, maybe you work in tight access, you need to invest when you're ready, to invest in the equipment that you're going to be using the most often. So asking yourselves questions like this one: do we have enough equipment to do the kind of work that we want? Do we have the right equipment for the task at hand? Are there tools or attachment that could improve your efficiency? What tools are shared between crews? Is it necessary? Could each crew have specific tools, or specific crews have specific specialties where they could do more of that work and use the same tools? Tools like this one, where you get all the information digitally for your elevations, something that you do every day on site, can save you in so much time. You can also share this information easily with your office, your designer, your sales team, or just for you, the foreman. You can keep track of all of this and download the data now. Equipment, I'm just going to flip through a little bit. Like this gentleman right here, Jeremy Morales from Morales Landscape and Masonry, helped me last year at Hardscape North America to build the display, and he pretty much used this machine for most of it, but just he's done the same thing for his business. He's purchased this machine, just a small crew. They were between 3 and 5 employees at the time. He was, in the low 300,000-400,000 per year before purchasing this. It was all labor intensive. He invested in this after running some numbers, and he actually tripled his business just within over 2 years with a machine like this, because this is something he would do every day. He just didn't have the equipment for it. So he was able to triple his revenue with one machine, and we see it here in this picture. He used it for his walls, for his slabs around pools. He does a lot of that work. That was a video. But when we run the numbers onto something like that for a piece of equipment like this, if you used it for 5 years, let's say the life, at the time it was for the smaller machine here that cost 35,000. But if you run the numbers, if you could use it 2.5 days a week, it would only cost him $9.50 an hour. But that's because he used it a lot. He actually paid his machine just in a couple months. But it just goes to show that you can put it on a long-term plan and still be very realistic, and it'll cost you less than an employee. Not that we're trying to replace employees, but we do have a shortage, and we can be more consistent. You can run a machine like this all day and install 3 to 6 times more pavers than you could with a crew of 3 people. You can do it the same thing with 1 person, right? So there's different models. There's a new one this year where you can operate it with your mini skid steers and as a workstation. So just giving you a few examples, all the attachments that comes, the clamps. Obviously, you've seen how much these are on the market now. But if you're saving in labor $1,500 to $1,800 a week, that could come to $45,000 a year, right? Just to get you thinking on all of these different types of equipment that you can purchase. An example of this one, this powered track loader, or not, the track dumper, can carry almost up to 2 times more than a small bobcat, or 5 times more than a wheelbarrow. And a guy can go all day with something like this, but it's hard to do the same with a wheelbarrow, right? 9, using products that can help you improve efficiency. So there's products on the market in the industry that helps you for different types of application. They might not be good for all applications, but they might be good, such as Gator Base, where you excavate less. You use a synthetic product that helps you build a base quicker, and that is good for walkways, and now in this example, you can check it out on YouTube, for walls, right? Products like this one, where you can now install quicker, faster, give the same look that you would before. Instead of doing a whole wall, you can just mount it and get some great results for decorative walls, or even outdoor kitchens like this one. You can build this in hours instead of days, right? So you've just sped up. And 10, you need to use technologies that simplifies and automates the process. So most of you here, if you know LMN and you're here because of LMN, well, you probably know and have used it, so you know how useful it is to use for creating a budget, using it as a CRM, identifying your tasks, your estimates, your job, creating your timesheets, invoicing, getting all this information into QuickBooks if that's the one you use. But essentially, you need an operation system that can keep track of all this information that you need for scheduling job, keeping the information, the labor information, the time information, to organize your crews and to keep them organized. Essentially, to have more engaged hardscape teams, you need goals, metrics, and good communication. All right, so we've talked about that today. We talked about some of the metrics, some of the communication. Hopefully, and thank you for still being here. If you're still here and you want to download the business snapshot report, it's easy. That's my gift to you today. It'll help you to identify which systems do you have or do you don't have that could be worth implementing. So, and also if you want this, you just reach out to me. This is the LMN eliminating waste Excel sheet that you can use. So if you want the business snapshot, you can go to frankbourque.com/business snapshot. And if you just want some more information, you can email me at frank@frankbourque.com. I can send you any information that you would like to get on top of anything that I've presented here today. The link is in the chat. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask them. I just got someone who texted me and asked, what's the most important step? I would say that getting together and sharing these steps with your employees, first and foremost, to tell them, here's 10 things that can help us improve, and going through the exercise, taking a look at the ones that you are not implementing currently and the ones that maybe you are implementing currently, and taking a look, having that discussion with your team to see what do we want to do first. And I've put it in the order that I usually do it first, but definitely getting them organized and set up with the right support is definitely the first step in the process. So I really appreciate you being here today. I hope you've got a few pointers, a few tips that you can use. And again, thanks to LMN for having me and for the opportunity. Thank you so much.